obviously you will start earning money if you get a job. So if you look at investor life cycle, the action actually begins not in the first phase, which is called dependent phase, because you're dependent on your parents without any kind of income. The actual income and earning and accumulation of wealth should begin in the second phase, which is termed as accumulation phase. And this is the phase where all the action happens, from marriage to children, to mature children, to their education, to their wedding, to your retirement. The entire drama is happening in this accumulation phase. And in case if you are very complacent about your money in the accumulation phase, you will have big trouble in the last phase, which is called distribution phase. The reason why it is called distribution phase, assuming that in the accumulation phase you would have accumulated a lot of wealth, and that wealth will be used post retirement. See, good thing is that because of government's intervention, whether you are very serious about your retirement or not, certain amount gets automatically accumulated. The moment you start earning as an employee, you are entitled to get certain statutory benefits. And these statutory benefits are basically aiming at providing social security. Because post retirement, you don't have any source of income. Then how will you survive after retirement? And the age of retirement in India is 60, depending on which company you're working, which sector you're working. It all depends on the company policy. So therefore, after 60, since you don't have any income, the survival becomes difficult. So that's the reason government has made it mandatory that companies give you some sort of a social security benefits, which primarily includes three benefits. Benefit number one, provident fund. Have you come across this term called provident fund? Benefit number two, gratuity. Benefit number three is pension. Private companies will not give you pension, they'll give you only pension. But once upon a time, government companies used to give pension, and even that now is cancelled. So, therefore, pension is something which you have to work on your own. The moment you start working, you have to create your own pension plan. Your own pension plan. So, pension is not compulsory, but what is compulsory is gratuity and provident fund. So, we have two different acts. For gratuity, there is a separate act passed in the parliament. For provident fund, there is a separate law. So, in case if you are working in an organization which has more than 10 employees, then payment of these statutory benefits are compulsory. So, obviously, you will not work in a company where there are 3-4 people who are working, right? You will work in a company where there are more than 10 employees. So, you will get these benefits by default. And some companies also offer another very interesting benefit called leave encashment. So, that also is a very handy benefit from the perspective of retirement. So, let's say how gratuity is calculated. I'll just give you some basic idea. Gratuity is calculated on the basis of your last drawn salary. That means when you're leaving the company, when you're getting separated from the company, at that time, what was your basic salary? Based on that, the calculation will be done. And if your last monthly salary is, like, say, basic 50,000, then calculate 50,000 into years of service into half, into half to make the calculation simple. So even if your salary is 50,000, you make it half. 25. 25 if you have put on 20 years of service. So 25,000 into 20 years. How much will be your gratuity? 5 lakhs. What about your provident fund? In provident fund, you will also contribute. Your employee will also contribute. Both contribution will go and sit in your PF account. And on that PF account, government pays interest. So luckily, government has made some arrangement wherein at least some benefit you will get when you retire from your job, but that won't be sufficient. And therefore, you have to have your own retirement and pension plan. See, once you grow older, the reason why the last stage is called distributions phase, obviously, all the wealth what you have accumulated, you will not take that wealth with you after your death. Right? Nobody can take anything after death. So therefore, in case if you have sufficient wealth after your retirement, life becomes pleasureful. Otherwise, it will become pressureful. So that's the difference. Money can create either pleasure or if you don't have money, it can create pressure. So therefore, after you retire, you have sufficient money saved in your bank account. You have your provident fund, you have your pension, you have your gratuity. On top of that, you have made investments, you have bought some real estate property. What will happen? Even if you say, I want to stay independently, your children will not live because you have wealth. So your children they don't want to leave you at all. But if you don't have wealth, they don't want you to be with them. And when you retire with big corpus, when you have a lot of money after your retirement, then you can actually cherish every moment of your life. I'm sure somewhere in your undergraduation, you would have studied a theory called Maslow's need hierarchy theory. According to Maslow's need hierarchy theory, first a person will meet basic needs. Then he will go for safety needs. Then he will go for social needs. Then he will go for self-esteem needs. And finally, there is a need which actually cannot be properly described. And that need is called self-actualization. So ultimately, there are some things in your life which you have not accomplished, which you want to accomplish once you have done all the tasks which you deem it to be necessary. So let's say at the age of 60, you have never gone for a world tour. So now after fulfilling all your responsibility, now you have sufficient money, you have retired from the job. Now you want to go for a world tour. That was your distant goal, which you'll be able to easily accomplish. And I've also seen in the society one new trend is catching up. Old couples getting married again. I mean, with the same spouse only, right? But again, remarriage. 25th anniversary will be a gala anniversary. It will be bigger than the wedding event. And if you have money, you can make every small occasion into a grand occasion. So that's where all this comes into picture. And obviously, if you have sufficient wealth accumulated, you can transfer the wealth to your children and to your grandchildren. It will help them also. So therefore, this is the entire journey of your life, which is represented in the graph. And the most crucial stage is when you start earning at the age of 22 or 23 till 60, you have to ensure you accomplish all your dreams. See, we don't use the term dreams in finance. Instead of using the word dreams, what we use is called financial goals. We don't use the word dreams. We use the word financial goals. Have you ever identified your financial goals? What you want to achieve in your life? And have you split them into short term, medium term, and long term? In next 5 years, what do you want to accomplish in your life? In next 10 years, what do you want to accomplish in your life? In next 15 years, what do you want to accomplish in your life? I'll show you some common example, which is quite common amongst people. So what you see here on the slide, they are called mandatory goals because this is something which a common man always has. One of the most common dream that every individual in India has is the dream of buying your house, right? A lot of people in India don't own a house. So owning a house always remains a dream. Now you may not I mean, you may have a house, which is your parents' house, but you may inherit, but you also have that dream that you should also have your own house. And how easy it is to own a house in a city like Bangalore or any other city in India. Is it expensive? The area where your university is located, this locality, if I ask you if you want to buy a 2 BHK house in this locality, 30 by 40 dimension, how much will it cost you? So the rates may go in crores. It may run in crores. So buying a house in this locality, is it possible for you people? It all depends on how much salary you will end up earning. And I've already given you the bitter fact. What will be your average salary? 20,000. I mean, unless you get a very good offer, right now the placement season is going on for the final year students. And I keep getting the data as to who got placed and how much they are offered. But if I take average, again, it will come to 20,000 rupees only. But hardly there are few companies who pay exceptional packages. Something which I did discuss with you in my initial classes. What's the difference between 20,000 per month and 1 lakh rupees per month? When your salary is 1 lakh rupees per month, all these goals which are listed here seems to be possible. But your salary is just 20,000 per month, all these goals seems to be impossible. So with 20,000 rupees salary, buying a house seems to be impossible. It's not possible to buy a house with a 20,000 rupees salary. Not even the house, even a lot of land, it's impossible because the land is also quite expensive. So you need to figure out a way how you can make and how you can achieve your goals with available resources. That is called an art. And that's the reason I said in the last session that finance is both science and also it is an art. How to achieve your dreams with available resources. That is something which I'll be discussing later. So, in case if you already have this, would you be happy? We always want more, something which you studied when you were taught economics for the first time, that human wants are unlimited. Even though you have all this, still you want to achieve more. So we have something called as optional goals. You already have this, you again want to aim for something which is much bigger than what you already have. So how will you accomplish all this in your life with limited salary? What is that you need to do? That is something which we have to discuss. So, what are these strategies for achieving financial health and how can you accomplish your dreams? So, what are the options that you have? I want to discuss those options. But before discussing those options, I also want to bring it to your notice that we also have a monster in finance which you have to manage. And this monster is called inflation. Because inflation technically eats your money, it reduces the purchasing power. When I did a research as to what are the favorite avenues of investments of Bangaloreans, especially the working class, I figured out certain important things. Some things were quite interesting, especially women, right? Where do women prefer investing? I'm talking about working women. Any guesses? What is the preferred avenue of investments of working women in Bangalore or in any other city in India? Working women prefer convenience and they also have problem with investing in stock market. So working women prefer convenience and the most convenient investment is fixed deposit. Money is already there in your savings account, just transfer it to a fixed deposit. And given the fact that you people are living in digital age, how quickly can you open a fixed deposit? That's it. You have to just complete your eKYC, which you would have already have completed because you already have an account. So within a matter of few seconds, your FD account is ready. Just transfer the money. But this fixed deposit, how much interest will it earn? See, one of the important thumb rule of investment which you people have to remember throughout your life, you should always invest in an avenue which is capable of producing a rate of return which is more than the rate of inflation. Simple logic. Wherever you want to invest, just do a math. The return what you're getting should be more than the rate of inflation. Otherwise, you're not making any money because all the returns what you're making is eaten away by the inflation. So if inflation is 7%, fixed deposit hardly gives you 6.25%. If the rate of inflation is 7%, I mean, are you investing for just the sake of 1%? Will 1% serve your purpose? The answer is no. So you have to figure out a way how do you manage inflation. See, inflation has two impacts. I want to show you in terms of data. If your monthly expenses are 30,000, you can figure out from your parents how much money they need to run the family every month. Assuming if it is 30,000 now, how much do you need in the future? So if your monthly expense is 30,000 now, and if the rate of inflation is 10%, after 3 years you need 40,000. Assuming the inflation is growing at the rate of 10%, to manage your family after 3 years, you need 40,000 because inflation makes things expensive. On the one hand, inflation is making things expensive. On the other hand, inflation is also reducing the value of your money. If you have kept 1 lakh rupees in your bank fixed deposits, if you have kept 1 lakh rupees in your bank fixed deposit, and if the rate of inflation is 10%, the value of this bank deposit, what you have kept in your bank account after 5 years is just worth 54,465. Something which you have learned in your subject corporate finance. Present value of money received in the future. The value of money declines on account of inflation. You use a discount rate, right, to do the calculation. So similarly, we have used a discount rate here, and our discount rate is the rate of inflation. So technically, fixed deposit is not making you money, but you're rather losing money on account of inflation. So what are the dual effects of inflation? One, it is making things expensive. Second, it is reducing the value of money. So you have to also figure out a way as to how to combat this problem. If you want to be a little more optimistic and if you want to lower the interest rates, that also we can do. Because we had considered inflation rate to be 10%, which is very high. But if you want to have a very moderate, very conservative rate, using that also we can do calculation. So I've done a parallel comparison here. So if your expenses are 30,000 per month right? Every month if it is 30,000, how much you need over the period of time, that calculation is shown for the next 20 years. So assuming the rate of inflation is growing at the rate of 5%, if the inflation grows at the rate of 5%, if you need 30,000 now, after 5 years, taking the inflation into account, you need 39,000. So your expenses keeps mounting because of inflation. On the other hand, all the money what you have saved, that money value is also declining because of inflation. So if you have 1 lakh rupees now, if the rate of inflation is 5%, after 5 years, your 1 lakh is just worth 79,000 rupees technically. So on the one hand, inflation is increasing expenses. On the other hand, inflation is reducing the value of money. So you have to also figure out a way as to how you will combat inflation. So what is that you need to do? What are the options you have to achieve financial freedom? So I've listed a couple of options. So let's go through this. See, one of the assumptions what we have is that in Indian culture, we have always thought that you have to save money. In fact, our entire society is based on a principle that we have to work today to have a better future. We work today to have a better future. Unlike Americans, they don't think of future. They think of living in the present. Now, summer holidays are coming up, right? Most of you will go for a trip, for a tour, right? You know what Americans do? They don't mind keeping their house on mortgage and take a loan and then go to a holiday. Who does that in India? Will you pledge your gold and go for a holiday in India? People don't do such things. But in US, they do that because they believe in living in the present. They don't believe in the concept of saving money for the future. But we Indians do that. All our plans is based on the future. The reason why you're doing this degree is because you have a plan for the future. So therefore, we are future oriented. So the money which you are saving, right? Unfortunately, in India, people don't even have access to bank accounts. Out of 150 crore population, according to you, what do you think? How many people have access to bank accounts? Government of India in the year 2015 took some initiatives to ensure that every person has a bank account. Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana was introduced to ensure that everybody has accessibility for basic financial service. One of the basic financial services to have a bank account. But still, out of 150 crore, right, our 80% population does not have access to bank account. And we have conventional way of saving. Indian household, especially mothers, they save money in the kitchen. Different containers which are kept in the kitchen, in the different currency denomination notes are kept. Change in chili powder box, 10 rupees notes in coriander powder box. So our women have figured out various ways of saving, but they are savings oriented. They always want to save every penny, which is a good thing because the starting point of financial freedom is with savings. But do you think savings will help? Because the logic is every penny saved is important. But mere savings will not help because as I told you, as I showed you the graph also, your savings is eaten away by inflation. So definitely mere saving is not a good idea. We have to explore other options. Option number one, how will you achieve your dreams, your financial goals? One of the option is that you should be from a wealthy background. Your parents, your ancestors would have saved sufficient money so that even if you sit and eat 3 times a day, a luxury or a gourmet meal at home, the money should never get exhausted. That is what our politicians do, right? Once they come into power, they will save for next 10 generations. But unfortunately, not everybody are from the wealthy background. And option two, opt for a lucrative profession. Why Indian parents want their children to become a doctor or an engineer? Why is there is a craze for medical profession and for engineering? Because these are the jobs that pays you well, right? Imagine a doctor, if you become a specialist, let's say you become a pediatrician or a gynecologist or a cardiologist, what is the fees per consultation? 1,000 rupees. If you're a specialist, what is the consultation fees? 1,000. Do you have any idea what is the average time an Indian doctor spends with his patients? A good doctor spends 10 minutes with a patient. 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, he's earning 1,000 rupees. So if he sees at least 20 patients per day, he will earn in the lakhs per month. So therefore, that's the reason it's called lucrative profession, because it's helping you earn a lot of money. So the degree what you're doing at this institution, will it help you to earn the money which doctors and engineers earn? Lakhs per month? Unfortunately, no. You have to accept the fact. So this option is also ruled out for you. Then how will you get financial freedom? You don't get financial freedom from savings. You will get financial freedom if you're from a wealthy background, but not everybody is from a wealthy background. Another way to achieve financial freedom is to opt for a lucrative profession which you have not opted, and now it's too late, but still there is an option. We'll explore some of the other options. This option is an option which is quite interesting. Would you go for this option? To achieve and fulfill your dreams, will you borrow money and finally disappear one day? I mean, either run away to another country or kill yourself. That's what people do. When they get caught in a debt trap, they'll eat poison and they will die. And some people, they'll run away somewhere so that nobody catches them. So borrowing funds is not a ideal way of accomplishing your goals. One more option which our ancestors have used. Can we explore that option? And what is that option? What our ancestors have used. Most of our roots will be from villages. Now we are living in city, maybe our ancestors were living in villages. So when you look at the typical village life, for an average villager, what are the list of assets he or she owns? An average village household, if you visit, what do you find? They will have their own land. One advantage is that they will have their own land. Second asset which they own is cattle. They'll have 10 cows, 20 sheep, chicken, because that is also a kind of asset for them. If agriculture is a failure, for them this animal husbandry becomes a source of income. Another important assets which our ancestors have considered for a very long time is to have as many as children as possible. And when we look at the track record of our ancestors, you will find out in those days, they used to have 10, 12 children. What was the underlying assumption of having so many children? They had a logic, which is now quite tragic, but I'll still tell you the logic. The logic was, if you have 10 to 12 children, the stereotype mentality of our ancestors was that out of 10 to 12, because gender is not in your control, because in those days, men or having boys were considered to be an asset, because women will get married and leave the house. But boys or men will continue to stay with the parents. So they are the one who are taking care of parents. That was the underlying assumption. So you have more and more kids because gender is not in your control. So in this process, you end up having 10 to 12 kids. In that 50% are women and 50% are men. In those 50% men, at least 50% of that 50% will end up becoming KD fellows, which means they'll have no consciousness and they will not take care of the parents. But at least 2 to 3 male child will be very serious about taking care of parents. So that will become their investment. But if you follow this logic now, God will save me. I mean, God will also not save you. You should only save yourself. So, the last and the best option is financial planning. Even with limited means, you can still do a planning in a way that you end up saving. First of all, you should ensure that you save money. For a very long time, we have this practice in India, especially when you're seeking an alliance. The practice what we have in India, that if a person wants to get married, he is looking for a proposal. So what is usually done in Indian culture? Will the boy go to girl's house, or will the family of girl come to boy's house? What is the practice we follow in India? Boy will visit girl's house. You watch Bollywood movies, right? The typical scene, girl getting a tray with tea, coffee and biscuits. One important parameter of evaluation. Let's take this three people, Suresh, Ramesh and Mahesh, are looking for an alliance. They want to get married. So they visit a girl's house. First, Ramesh, one of the important questions that is asked during this proposal is about your financials. So his prospective father-in-law will ask him, how much are you earning? If he says 20,000 rupees per month, that will be a disappointment. Next person says, I earn 50,000 rupees per month. So Ramesh is 20 and Suresh is 50. And Mahesh is earning 1 lakh rupees per month. So who has better chances? That's what I wanted to tell you. This question is wrong. Father of bride or girl should not ask how much are you earning, but he should ask how much are you saving. This fellow is earning 1 lakh, but he is not saving anything. In fact, he has loans. He has taken EMIs to buy a car, to buy a phone. He's not saving anything. And this gentleman who's earning 20,000, his monthly expense is just 2,000 rupees. And what is his savings? 80,000. So the perspective also should change. The point I want to make is, what is the starting point of financial planning? Savings. First, you should save. And saving is not easy. You have to be very disciplined for that. If you have 1,000 rupees in your wallet or pocket, will you keep quiet? 1,001 ideas will come in your mind as to how to use that 1,000 rupees in 1,000 seconds. That's a natural mentality. So you should be disciplined. You should know what to spend on, what not to spend on, and not fall prey to the marketing activities that usually brands do. Brands always want us to spend money. So you should not get trapped in that. So therefore, the starting point is savings. Now, once you have saved money, another important question that needs to be answered is, if you have saved money, where will you invest that money? What options do you have? Which option will actually transform your wealth? I want you to take out your mobile phone now. Very good. Use it productively. In your mobile phone, I want you to check what is the share price of DMart at the moment. So just type DMart share price and tell me the price. DMart share price. You just tell me what is the price of the DMart. 3,639. Okay, good. Now also check the share price of Eicher Motors. EICHER. 5,005 rupees. Can you open the calculator now? All of you? Okay, open the calculator. Open the calculator. Done. 60,000 divided by 10. 6,000. 6,000 into 5,000. How much? How many crores? 3 crores. And then followed by how many lakhs? Round figure 3 crores. Very good. So this is what I told to my uncle. That you would have had 3 crores now had you followed my advice. Now the advice was that he has a Royal Enfield motorcycle. And who makes a Royal Enfield motorcycle? This company called Eicher Motors. And he bought a Royal Enfield motorcycle way back when I was in 10th standard for 60,000 rupees. So I told him recently that, uncle, mama, whatever you call, that instead of buying Royal Enfield motorcycle, had you bought shares, you would have had 6,000 shares. 60,000 divided by 10, 6,000. And the value of those 6,000 shares now is 3 crores. In that 3 crores, you could have bought one bungalow, one car, and you could have gifted one Royal Enfield motorcycle to me. He got angry. He said, why you didn't give this idea way back when I bought this? So I said, it's too late now. I'll give you some new ideas. You focus on that. So I gave him some new ideas. Ideas to invest, basically. You saw the share price of DMart, right? When DMart issued the shares to public, I bought the shares in the IPO and it was just 299 rupees. What was the share price? One share was 299. And in just 5 years, 299 has become one more share, one more last share I want you to check. This is a very interesting company. This company has created a lot of wealth for the investors. The name of this company is called Dixon Technologies. Dixon. What is the share price? 15,350. I bought this share for 1,700 rupees. The point which I wanted to tell you is, what's important is two things. First, what is your income? It can be low or it can be high. Even with 20,000 rupees per month, can you make a difference? The answer is yes. You have to develop a habit of saving. Once you start saving, next you should think of where should I invest my saving that, I should accomplish my financial goals. So you have all these options. These are the options. Had you invested in gold in the year 2021, you would have got 100% returns now. What's the difference between 2021 and 25? How many years? 4 years. In 4 years, your money would have become double. Had you invested in shares, your money would not have just become double, but it would have become 4 times. It would have become 4 times just in a matter of 4 years. So therefore, what's important is that first you have to be disciplined. You should know when to spend, when not to spend. Second, you should ensure that you are saving money every month. And that money should be invested in stock market. Stock market will help you to achieve your financial goals. But the only challenge of investing in stock market, I've already identified 2 challenges. Challenge number 1, there are 6,000 shares available on BSE and NSE put together. How many shares? In that 6,000, which will change your fortune. So what is the most difficult thing people find in stock market investment? Stock picking. What was the first challenge? Stock picking. The second challenge in stock market investment is timing. When I say timing, it's not about checking whether it is Yamagala, Rahu Ganda, right? You have different categories. It's not about astrology, right? It's not about astronomy. It's about economic timing. You should learn the art when to buy, when to sell, when to hold. First challenge is stock picking. What is the second challenge? Timing. When to buy, when to sell, when to hold. Because in India, people do opposite. When you should sell, they will buy. And when you should buy, which is the right time now, people will panic and sell. Have you come across a name called Warren Buffett? Yes. He is considered to be investment guru. And he has given one very interesting quote, which I always discuss. The quote goes like this: be greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy. What does it translates to? It translates to a simple concept. When the market is bearish, you should buy. When the market is bullish, you should. So investing in stock market is not a rocket science. So start with small amounts. In fact, start with practice. You don't even have to have an amount. There are many websites, many apps that will help you to create dummy portfolio. Yes, with paper money, learn the arts of how to choose the stock. Slowly it will come. You should first develop an interest, an appetite to save. Then you should generate an interest to learn stock market. So therefore, these are some of the fundamental things which I wanted to discuss with you as a part of financial etiquette, as a part of financial wealth and well-being. And also one area which we have not touched upon, and we are also running out of time, but I'll just quickly tell you this area, because we were all talking about investment, we were talking about earnings, but what is also important is protection. A person whose salary is 1 crore, 1 crore a year, right, with a big family, the only breadwinner, if he dies, what will happen to the family members? Because most of the people don't think about insurance. Out of 150 crore population, how many people in India have life insurance? Less than 5% people have life insurance. So look at the tragedy. People always run behind earning money, but they don't know if they die, what will happen to their dependents. So you have to also think from that perspective and buy a life insurance. But life insurance, the problem is life insurance company will give you money only if the person dies. But let's say if a person meets with an accident, loses both his hands and legs, can he work throughout his life? So what you have to do when you're buying a life insurance, you have to buy a comprehensive life insurance policy with added benefits. One of the benefit you have to add is disability benefit. Because life insurance is only for death. Disability, it will not give you money. So you have to buy an extra package called disability, extra package called accident, extra package called critical illness. If a person gets a cancer, it's not dying, but insurance company will give money only after death. But what about the suffering? What about the money for the treatment of cancer? For which you have to buy an additional package called critical illness benefit. And also, when you're buying life insurance, you have to ensure that you're buying a policy of a big amount. It all depends on your income earning capacity. See, somebody has bought a life insurance of 50 lakhs. Would that be sufficient? The problem is, in order to die also, there is a cost. If a person goes and sleeps, tomorrow he does not wakes up. That's actually a very good death. But people don't die like this. People will spend some time in hospital and hospital bill will be mounting. The person would have already died, but hospital will keep that person on ventilator saying that, let's hope. And if they are spiritual, they'll make bakra also. Have faith in God. Doctors will say like this. And on one, what is the cost of ventilator per day? 50,000, 60,000 is the cost of ventilator. So by the time that person dies, hospital bill only is 20 lakhs. And in India, death is also a ceremony. We have rituals, right, in India. If a person dies, we have to call all the family members, relatives, friends, we have to feed them. And after that, we have fifth day, seventh day, 10th day, 12th day. All the ceremonies are there. So when you're dying, death also has an element of cost, which you have to keep in mind when you're buying an insurance policy. Right? So with this, we will end our conversation.